So welcome everyone to this webinar about how you can boost customer engagement using quiz chatbots. I'm going to put my phone on silent. I'd suggest that you guys do the same thing,
Yes.
but we can't hear your audio. So for all we care, you could be playing a game on your phone through this webinar. Though I suggest that you pay attention because there's going to be a lot of really useful information shared.
Yep.
Now, if you guys are TAR's webinar viewers, you'll know that we've actually hosted a webinar very similar to this one almost a year ago. Our second webinar ever was about how you can make a quiz chatbot using the TARS builder. And we actually did a live build in that. And we decided that we wanted to do this topic again because one, the value of quiz chatbots hasn't really diminished. We're talking about customer engagement today, but the scope of it, as we'll maybe discuss in the Q&A section, goes way beyond that. You can use this to engage your employees. You can use it to engage your partners. You can really use the learnings we'll talk about on this webinar to engage anyone that engages with your business, be they customers or employees or whoever. And second, because we actually managed to, we got into a conversation with the folks over at Zozode. That's why Anisha is with us today. And we thought that we could actually add some value to the quiz chatbots that we were already making using the offerings that they have at Zozode. So a big part of today's webinar is going to be sort of bringing their knowledge of incentivization in and showing you how you can create a quiz chatbot that makes use of not only the chatbot functionality of the TARS builder, but also makes use of the incentivization functionality of Zozode to create a fully automated experience versus one where you actually have to put in manual effort from your team and it becomes a little bit more operational, like we showed you in the last webinar. So instead of talking any more about this, let's jump right in. As always, we like to begin our webinars with introductions. If you guys are regular viewers of TAR's webinars, you'll know who I am. I'm Arnab. I'm your regular host for these webinars. I'm a content marketer over here at TARS. And essentially, my job consists of making content just like this webinar to help you guys get the most out of your marketing stacks, out of your customer service stacks, out of your customer experience stacks. If you've been for these webinars before, you'll know that this I essentially live and breathe webinars these days. Today, I am privileged to be joined by Anisha Shenoy, Senior Product Marketing Manager from Zozode. And as always, rather than have me give her an introduction, I'm going to hand it off to her because she'll almost definitely do a better job than I would at introducing herself.
Hi everybody, and welcome to the session. And first of all, thanks Arnav for giving us that boost of energy. It's night time here, so much needed.
Right.
Yeah, a little bit about me. So I've been a marketer for about a few years now, and this is specifically, when it comes to irrespective of B2B SaaS industry, right? So it's very interesting here how specific to your B2B SaaS market, the customer behaviors, right? So not a lot of them are patient. So my job is to keep them attentive all the time and have their attention all the time, and also advocate customers, right? Be an advocate for customers, and at the same time for the product, internally in the team and externally. So I'm going to give you some insights today about how best we can incentivize customers and keep them engaged at all stages of your sales funnel. And I'm sure plugged in with the TARS quiz chatbot, this is just going to go up a notch higher, and everybody is going to be really interested to look at this offering.
Awesome. And a little bit about the companies that are hosting this webinar today, the companies that we're representing. TARS has been around since 2016, and in that time, we've been helping marketers primarily boost their conversion rates using conversational tech. But I kept it at this for just this webinar because I know that there are a lot of marketers in the audience. We also work with teams of we also work with customer service teams as well to help automate their customer service interactions and customer experience teams. So if you're doing onboarding and things like that. But I know that on this webinar, we have a lot of marketers. So in the marketing space, what we primarily help with is boosting conversion rates using conversational tech. And I think today's webinar topic fits in really well with that, because the learnings that you're going to take from today are actually going to help you translate customer engagement into actual business or actual leads.
Right. And a little bit about what Zozode does. It is primarily a rewards and incentives infrastructure for all businesses. Like it could be a large scale business or a early stage startup. So what we do is we sort of breathe in the concept that a business is made of its people, right? And if the people involved, the stakeholders involved, be it your employees, be it your sales team, be it your business teams, or your customers, if they are not motivated, and if they are not happy at the end of the day, your business is not going to be efficient or sustainable. So we kind of focus on incentivizing each and every person involved in this particular business process. And we do that in a number of ways. Like we do it using gamification, we do it using incentives calculators, we do it using employee R&R programs, we manage the whole rewarding to redeeming process, and all of that actually in a one stop shop kind of a situation where we have each and every solution managed end to end. So this is what we do, and we are in a nutshell an employee customer sales and channel incentive engagement platform.
Awesome. Awesome. Fits in perfectly with our topic for the day. Now, to give you guys an overview of what we are going to cover in today's session, uh, we've divided it up into 4 parts. The first part, Anisha is going to talk to you guys a little bit about the importance of incentivization. I think that if you are on this webinar, you probably already have a good sense of it, but just to get us all on the same page, just to give us all some context before we jump into the quiz chatbot side of things, we're going to have Anisha talk to us a little bit about the importance of incentivization. Then in part 2, I'll talk to you a little bit about why we're here today, quiz chatbots, and why quiz chatbots are the best way to administer quizzes, or in the context of the first section, administer an incentivization program, because a quiz at the end of the day is a way to incentivize your customers to take some action. Then we get to the latter half of the webinar, parts 3 and 4, which in my opinion are always the best parts of these webinars, because they're a little bit more interactive. We're not stuck in a boring slide deck, regardless of how well designed it is by our designer. We are going to jump out of the slide deck. We're going to actually show you a quiz chatbot in action. And then we're going to open up the floor for questions and answers. So if you guys have any questions, feel free to drop them in the Q&A. And I will say you don't have to wait for the Q&A section to actually submit your questions. We actually do have a moderator on this webinar as well, Abhilash. So you can submit your questions while we are speaking, and he'll do his best to field them. We'll do our best to field them if it makes sense while we are talking. But worst comes to worst, we will address those questions at the end of the webinar, but do not feel shy about dropping your questions in the chat, in the Q&A section. We'd be more than happy to answer them. And really quick, because we get this question every single time we do a webinar, we will send a recording of this webinar out to you guys. So if you have to leave early for whatever reason, if you have another appointment, if you just have Zoom fatigue, feel free to jump off. We'll send you a recording so that you can watch the whole thing at your own pace. And with that, we can jump right into the actual content of this webinar. I'm going to hand it over to Anisha to talk to you a little bit about the importance of incentivization.
Right. Right. So before we get into what customer incentives are and the hows and the what's of it, let's look at why incentivization is needed. Right. So I mean, we all know that we saw something coming in the past year, which nobody really saw. Right. So for situations like this, and for every other situation where we need to hold engagement of your customer for a longer time and make him a loyal customer, and just have the whole retention part of it ongoing for the customer, it is very important to keep them engaged at all stages. Now what most organizations sort of think is that before they the journey from a prospect to a customer is where they spend most of the time in nurturing a customer. And once they are your converted customer and they are there and they are consuming your product, there's not that the frequency of engagement actually comes down with time. So this is something which I would like to address, and especially when it comes to consumer brands, right? this often leads to disengagement, which could, be diminishing trust online and offline, which could also be quick switches to competitor brands, which is, I think, quite easy right now with the number of competitors we have for each and every product and service out there. Another reason why people don't really look at consumer engagement as such a vital part of their marketing and sales journey is the shrinking budgets, right? We have to do it in a sustainable manner, wherein you're not shelling out too much of your cash on engaging customers, wherein probably the stakeholders don't agree so much that it is a good idea to spend so many bucks on engaging customers who are already around. So we will tackle this. And another reason why customer engagement is essential is to have loyalty, right? Consumer loyalty is not just doesn't just stop at that very customer. It could also lead to customer referrals if we have a loyal customer around. So now one of the easiest ways to overcome consumer disengagement is a tried and tested solution, which is rewarding and incentivizing. And we don't really look at just any other rewarding and incentivizing solution out there. We have to look at a holistic and an end-to-end program, which caters to each and every point mentioned here, right? Like, so you need instant gratification to engage customers. Now, if there's a customer and um, if you send him a Christmas wish, say during New Year's, right? If it is delayed to such an extent that you're not really relevant or you're not really up to date, then there's no point of that. So the disbursements have to happen instantly. So that is where the instant gratification comes into place. And rewarding and incentivizing is like, I would like to put it as a cost effective but high impact solution, right? So this helps create a culture of loyalty and community. It instantly builds a community of a loyal customer base, and this can only help you in all the upsells and cross sells uh, going forward. So, like I already mentioned, customer reference is another point, and your customer advocates actually become your brand evangelists at the end of the day. So it can be like a thought leadership activity as well for you, if you keep your customers engaged and happy all the time. Repeat customers, of course. And I think having an analytics and insights view, like a report view of your customer base, which is also something that our rewarding and incentive solution does, can help you quantify the qualitative aspects of the customer. Right. So, like I mentioned, there's a bunch of rewarding and incentivizing solutions out there, but they are fragmented and they are not holistic. So, it could be cost in operational ineffectiveness, it could be lack of robust APIs, it could be lack of real time reports and insights. The user experience may not be that great. Maybe there's some issues with instant disbursement of rewards. Also, one of the most so research actually has that. Personalized and customized reward campaigns is what resonates most with customers, right? So it has to feel like it is a one-on-one gift that they have received, and not just like any other a random gift voucher that keeps popping in your email. So I think personalization is one of the important things which we've looked at, and that is essentially the USP of a great rewarding platform. Right. Right. So this is Zozode Plum. This is how our rewarding and incentivizing product looks. So this is the storefront screenshot, and there's a bunch of rewarding options. It could be gift cards, it could be experiences, it could be you could donate to charity, you can purchase bitcoins. So you can do a number of things. So that is why we like to call it the digital enabler. Right. So today we're going to talk about this particular use case where we actually drive consumer behavior with digital rewards. So now all you marketing geeks out here might be well aware of all the different stunts that we do on a daily basis to drive consumer behavior, right? So this is just one of those many shots at it, and the only difference being that this really works, and it is especially in a current situation where it is so easy for a consumer to switch to a competitor. I think this is only the easiest and the most effective manner to um, retain a customer. Right. So we, in as Plum offers, so we specifically look at personalized, meaningful, and cost-effective rewards. Now, so there are four aspects to rewarding your customers, right? So it could be, so there's first, what you do is you define the behavior, right? Now, the behavior could be a number of things. It could be if the customer has recently referred somebody. It could be if he has done a repeat purchase, if he has written a positive review for your product or your service on a vendor site, if he has upgraded his plan, or if he has created some user generated content. So now these are some of the examples of the behaviors that you would want to reward. So what a trigger is essentially is it is quantifying those behaviors for defined parameters. For example, you say, okay, if my customer has provided one review on so and so website, I'm going to trigger this reward or trigger this action. So this action is basically defining or automating a reward based on a rule engine set on certain triggers and milestones. Now, so the milestone could be that your customer has maybe purchased this plan, or conducted a free trial or booked a demo for so and so product on so and so date. So when as soon as this particular action is done by your customer, a reward is automatically triggered, and all of this happens at the back end in an automated fashion. So there is absolutely no manual effort here. So now what happens as a result of all of these things? So, you define the behavior, you set the trigger, and you automate the reward. So what happens here is your customer, so your churn rate, right? So the conversion rates increase. Your campaign ROI is benefited from this because, like I said, it is a very cost effective but high impact process. Customer lifetime value and your NPS score. So all of these things are always on an upward graph kind of a onset, because you are looking at rewarding your customers at everything, or so the benefits of customer incentives, right? So it helps promote customer loyalty. So each and every action that you have triggered results in the same thing. So I mean, if the behavior could be different, the trigger could be different, and the action is rewarding, and your result is always the same. You improve CLTV and reduce customer acquisition cost. Because so I could give you a simple example with respect to employee rewarding, right? So what motivates an employee to perform better if he's appreciated and rewarded on a timely basis? So it is as simple as that. And human psychology stays the same whether you're an employee or your customer. If you're appreciated, if you're called out for all the good things that you've done, you're definitely going to stick around for longer. Right. So what we do, so one of the benefits, one of the many benefits of the product Plum is that we give the power of choice to the user, right? So we probably send in a voucher code to the customers, and it is at their convenience that they can select the reward that they would like to redeem from 20,000 plus options. Like I mentioned earlier, it could be experiences, it could be gift vouchers, it could be brand gift cards, it could be a fintech solution that you would want to sort of consume. It could be a stay at a beautiful resort or a weekend getaway. It could be anything. So the reward that you would like to redeem, you are the decider of that. So we give you a bunch of options, and this is the breakdown of the country wise breakdown, and these are just a couple of examples out of the many that we have. And a few other benefits are we have omni-channel delivery, wherein digital delivery being the most used means right now. And it's one-click redemption, like I said. So there's hardly any wait time, and multi-currency denomination being you can redeem rewards in the currency of the country that you currently reside in. Right. So far we spoke about why incentivizing is important and how you can incentivize. That is, through a reward, an incentive solution like ours. But one of the things that people often choose to ignore, or they don't really realize, is that a simple rewarding, like say even your appraisal systems and things like that are also rewarding, right? So monetary rewarding or things like that. So when it becomes mundane is also another reason when disengagement occurs. So that it's not as monotonous as it sounds. Like, okay, you perform a task and we reward you. So we have tried to bring about a concept which has existed for a while, but which not a lot of companies have tapped into, which is gamification of incentives. Now I'm sure all of you are aware of the term gamification, and it is just a couple of a simple example that comes to my mind is just playing like bingo, right? Wherein you have a bunch of tasks that you need to complete, and once you do that, you get that big reward. So gamification works with rewarding as one of the tools for motivation, and you complete a specific objective in a goal-minded game and win a reward. So here, so the engagement happens for a longer duration, wherein the customer is hooked on with you for a longer time, and as he sort of unlocks every level to reach that home run, so for the big reward, so this actually keeps your customer keeps engaged for a longer time, and it also makes the whole process interesting. So there's a lot of micro achievement games that we can build through this, quiz chatbot being definitely one of the big examples. And from this, you move on to our storefront. Once you sort of unlock these rewards, you move on to our white choice rewards catalog, and then you choose your reward. So this makes the whole process a lot more interesting than just clicking that button and just sending that person an email as soon as he does something or he upgrades his plan or things like that. So this is an interesting approach to reward by breaking the monotony. Right. Over to you, Arnav.
Sorry. Awesome. I think that was super useful. I think the one thing that really stuck out to me that I think everyone needs to keep in mind is the idea that the psychology of the customer, at the end of the day, the psychology of anyone you're interacting with, at a
Right.
fundamental level, if you revert to that, it's the same across contexts. So whether you're interacting with a employee or whether you're interacting with a customer, the underlying psychology that makes them want incentives, that makes them work towards getting that gift card, or work towards getting that donation to a charity, is the same across these contexts, which is really powerful, because it means that if you take any of the learnings that we share with you today, you can reapply it to several different contexts wherever you're interacting with people, where you want them to complete an interaction. Now, moving on to the next part of this webinar, what we need to discuss, the sort of part of this story that we still need to justify to you guys, that we still need to make to you guys, is why chatbots are the best way to administer your incentivization programs. Or put differently, in this case, the specific form of incentivization that we are talking about, where Anisha just left off in terms of gamification, is quizzes. So why are chatbots the best way to administer your quizzes, which are delivering these incentives to your customers? And I think before we can jump into that, we need to, before we can jump into the answer to that question, we need to get a few basic concepts out of the way. Now, if you guys are TARS webinar regulars, you will have seen this slide before. But for the folks who haven't been for one of our webinar, who haven't attended one of our webinars before, a lot of the times we like to start on this slide, because we often like to challenge what a chatbot actually means and try to reframe your conception of a chatbot as a viewer, because I think that it's important to look at chatbots in the right way to understand why they're the ideal solution for the problem we're talking about today. Now, generally speaking, most people, when they think of what a chatbot is, they think of a definition like the one on the screen right now. And this definition isn't wrong, but it is a little too broad for my liking. It doesn't really tell you anything about how they facilitate a trade of information or services. It's kind of it's a bit boring, especially if we're talking about the digital marketing space. Not that the definition I'm about to give you is any less boring, but it might be a little bit more specific. Now, to address this problem, the definition that I like to go with generally, especially in the context that we're talking about today, where we're administering quizzes through chatbots, is I like to think of a chatbot as a conversational form, nothing more, nothing less. And what I mean by that is any information that you collect through a regular form on your website can be collected through a chatbot instead. So over here, we created this Quicken Loans chatbot as a demo for one of our previous webinars. If anyone from Quicken Loans is in the audience right now, if you guys want access to this chatbot, we'll give it to you. We sort of just created it as a challenge to ourselves to see if we could convert an existing landing page into a chatbot. But the idea is that if you have a current process that requires a form, to collect information, you can do the same thing through a chat interface. The outcome is the same. The medium that you're achieving it through is completely different. Now, you must be wondering, what does this have to do with quizzes? Well, I'm about to give you another hot take over here. The other hot take that I'm going to share with you guys on this webinar is that most quizzes are essentially glorified forms. If you think about the way that we administer quizzes today, the interfaces might seem a little fancier than a regular form. The questions might be a little bit more fun than your regular lead forms or your regular web forms. But at the end of the day, all you're doing is you're collecting information from your customers. You're operationalizing that information to give them a result at the end, much like your forms are doing. Essentially, the way we are administering quizzes today is through a regular form. Now, putting that definition of quizzes as essentially glorified forms together with our definition of chatbots as conversational forms, you can see how we arrive at the concept of a quiz chatbot. As the name suggests, a quiz chatbot is essentially when you administer a quiz through a chatbot. So instead of doing it through a regular form, you do it through a conversational form or a chatbot. So with that setup out of the way, the next question that we have to discuss, the punchline of this webinar, if you will, is why using a conversational form or a chatbot is better than using a regular form or your regular quizzes. And I thought a lot about how we could phrase this section of the webinar, because there are a lot of auxiliary benefits to chatbots as well that apply regardless of the context, whether you're using it for quizzes or not. But I decided that for this webinar, I'm going to focus it down onto the key value that applies, I think, only in the context of quizzes, really. And that's personality. The beauty of administering a quiz through a chat interface is that the context in which the user is, the framing in the user's mind of the interaction that they're having changes completely. A form is completely devoid of personality. When a customer is going through your regular quizzes to get to that reward at the end, they don't think that they're interacting with anyone. They're doing the quiz on their own. It's almost as if you've handed them a clipboard and you're asking them to circle off their answers and then hand it back to you so that you can calculate their responses. There's not really much scope for adding personality to that entire process. And this might seem cosmetic. We'll get to why it's important in a little bit, but it might seem cosmetic, but it turns out it's not actually as cosmetic as you think. With a quiz chatbot, on the other hand, you do have access to that personality because the conversation is framed as because the interaction is framed as a conversation. The quiz is no longer a one-way street. It's no longer a one-way passive interaction where the customer is doing the quiz on their own. You are actually taking an active step to administer that quiz to them. Your chatbot is a representative from your company that is administering that quiz to them, even if they are fully automated. And the beauty of that, you can do some really creative stuff with that. So my favorite thing that a lot of folks do is that you can transform the experience of doing a quiz, which is generally quite a passive interaction where you're essentially, it's a glorified way of filling out a clipboard, into an actual game show, because the quiz chatbot itself has a personality and can be that game show host. And by tapping into creative ideas like this, you can make the experience of giving that quiz more engaging, because obviously everyone's watched game shows. We all know that they're fun. I still remember when Quiz Up was all the rage with all of my friends. But you can essentially tap into that that appeal and use that to increase the engagement of your user engagement quizzes. A little bit meta over there. And the end result of this, the real value, the reason that you want to do this is because at the end of the day, even when you're getting someone to finish a quiz, even when you're getting someone to finish a quiz where there's an incentive at the end of the quiz, um, you are still playing the conversion rate optimization game. At the end of the day, as a marketer, it's your goal to get as many people as possible to finish that quiz, because unless they get that incentive at the end, unless they feel that gratification at the end, they are not going, it's going to be very hard to convert that gratification into brand loyalty, into repeat business, into any of those benefits that Anisha was talking about in the first part of this webinar. And to that end, adding that personality, making the quiz more fun, making it more engaging, helps you do that, because the actual process of filling out the quiz, the actual process of completing it, becomes that much more engaging when you convert it from being this passive fill out a clipboard process to a game show. I mean, this is sort of a thought experiment that I had yesterday when I was practicing these slides. If you actually imagine what it would be like to convert your regular quizzes that you're using to engage your customers into a physical process, and a chat-based quiz that you might administer to your customers in the future, or if you're administering them right now, into a physical process, you start to see the difference. Literally, if you were to convert the regular quizzes that you have into a physical process, you would literally just print out the quiz, hand it to them on a clipboard, and ask them to fill it out. Whereas with the chat-based quiz, you would, if you were to think about a way to convert that into the physical world, it would actually involve someone asking the users questions and administering it to them, which completely changes the way people perceive that interaction and increases the likelihood of them actually completing it, so that you can see those benefits Anisha was talking about. Now, I've been told, I've been given feedback in previous webinars by folks on our team that we should keep the slide section of these webinars as short as possible. We're making good time here. We're about halfway through our session. So instead of talking to you guys anymore about how these quiz chatbots work, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to jump out of the slides now, and I'm going to actually show you a quiz chatbot that I made in preparation for this webinar that uses both the functionality of the TARS chatbot platform and the functionality of the Zozode incentivization platform to create a customer engagement quiz that has an incentive at the end that can be actually used to drive a lot of the value that Anisha was talking about. I think the best way that I've heard this described to me by someone on my team is that it's always better to show rather than tell. So that's exactly what I'm going to do today. So this is a quiz chatbot that I created specifically for this webinar. It's a pretty basic quiz chatbot, but as you'll see when we jump into the back end of it, you can actually customize this and make it as complex as you want based on your specific requirements. I just made this quiz chatbot to sort of demonstrate the basic functionality of how these sorts of things work. Now, initially, when I had created this quiz chatbot over a year ago, we weren't in the middle of a pandemic, so travel was a lot easier, a lot safer. Now, though, I had to adapt the messaging a little bit so that it fits a little bit more into the current context. But essentially, what this quiz chatbot is doing, the hypothetical use case that we're using it for, is a travel company, a company that helps folks book vacations, is administering a quiz to their existing customers, to their existing list, to essentially get them to give this quiz, give them a gift card at the end, and maybe get them in the mode of thinking about what their post-pandemic vacation is going to look like. Because I don't know about you guys, but I personally, the first thing I want to do once it's safe to go out again, I'm in Southern California where it's quite bad, but the first thing I want to do is actually go for a vacation. So I thought it would be good to keep it on this use case. But that's the use case behind this quiz. And as you can see in this first interaction right here, what I've tried to do is I've tried to give the game show type feel to the interaction. So we have a host over here. We've sort of framed the chatbot itself that's conversing with the user as the quiz master of the show. We've thrown in a GIF here to make it a little bit more fun and to give an actual visual cue to the customer of what their quiz master looks like. I just pulled this GIF off of Jiffy for any of you who are interested in finding out where we get these GIFs from. And through this quiz, what we're going to do is we're going to ask the user, in this case me, a couple of questions about travel. Based on their responses, we're going to give them a custom messaging and then a gift card at the end, or a voucher at the end. The voucher is obviously powered by the Zozode Plum platform that Anisha was talking about earlier. So let's start with this quiz. Over here it says, "Welcome to the TARS Travel Group Travel Quiz Show. I'm TARS, your quiz master today, and we'll be taking a look at just how much you know about the world of travel. And based on your responses, I'll give you an exciting prize." So let's click start the quiz. Now it's going to start asking us the questions. So which country gets the most visitors per year? Over here, I obviously know the answers because I set this up. I'm going to give it a correct answer this first time. It turns out it's actually France. I actually don't know. Maybe I need to update my information. I don't know if it's still France after the pandemic, but as of a year ago, it was definitely France. Again, throwing in a GIF here to make it a little bit more engaging. Which city gets the most visitors per year? Let's give it a wrong answer this time because just to show you that we can branch in different directions based on the user response. I know that the answer to this question is actually Bangkok, but over here I'm going to say Paris because, I mean, if France is the most visited country in the world, it would make sense that Paris is the most visited city, but it turns out it's not. I guess a lot of people who go to France are visiting the south of France, which makes sense. It's a beautiful, beautiful place. And now we finally reached the final question, an easy one over here. Where was the following picture taken? It obviously was taken in America. It was obviously taken in Las Vegas, where the Eiffel Tower is. No, it was taken in France, so we'll select France over here. We got the question right. It is going to calculate our score. I'll show you what this looks like on the back end in just a minute. And then once the score has been calculated, it's going to tell us that we can reveal our prize. Once we hit the reveal prize option, it's going to say you did really well. I'm giving you for your achievement, I'm giving you a hotels.com $50 gift card that you can use once it's safe enough to travel again. And then we have the details of the gift card over here. Now, as you can see, this is a demo gift card, obviously, because we obviously did not want to issue an actual gift card just for the purpose of this webinar. I don't think anyone on the TARS team right now is anywhere close to going on a vacation. Actually, never mind. What am I saying? Maybe I'm just not. Maybe I'm just projecting my own situation in Southern California over here onto everyone else. But over here, we have all of the details that we need as a user to redeem this gift card. And if we want, we can also set up the interaction so that we can set up the chatbot so that the gift card and the details can be emailed to us or texted to us right within the chat. So if I click email gift card over here, it's going to ask me for my email. And then it's going to use that to get in touch with us. You'll also notice that we can leverage these quizzes as a way to generate leads for us. So say you send this out to your existing email list. They interact with your quiz chatbot, and in the end you'd say, hey, by the way, we can also help you plan your post-pandemic getaway if you want. Just let us know and we'll help you out with that. And you can actually convert on the spot those people who are engaging with your quiz into potential customers, into leads that you can follow up on. So over here, I'm going to share my email. Let's give it my work email. Great, the details have been sent. If we click book a free consultation, it's just going to say we'll reach out to you on the details that you shared. So they're just going to use my email that I share over here to get in touch with me. The lead's already been generated. The information's already been captured because I wanted the gift card sent to me. And that's essentially the entire experience for a user. Now on the back end, what this looks like is essentially a flowchart. The folks in the audience who are already TARS users are very familiar with this interface already. But for those of you who are not TARS users already, one of the main questions that we get when we do a demo like this is, okay, this looks great. I might want to implement this, but my team's a customer experience team, a marketing team, a customer service team. We don't have a developer on staff. So how do we make one of these chatbots? If we work at if they work at a bigger company, it's usually the question that we get is, I really don't want to have to interact with my IT department to get this done. Oh, by the way, my neighbors are drilling right now. So if you hear weird noises in the background, that's what's going on. I don't know why, but things like this always happen when I'm on a webinar. But anyways, back to what I was saying before, if it's a smaller team, then the question is, do I need to hire a developer to make one of these things? And the simple answer is no, because we've made our platform accessible to essentially everyone. The logic that we have is if a digital marketer like myself can use it, then anyone can, because digital marketers, we're creative folks. We essentially do psychology for our profession, as Anisha was talking about earlier. But we're not the most tech savvy folks often. We don't know how to code often. So our logic with this builder, the approach our product team takes, is to make it as easy to build a chatbot as it is to set up an email marketing campaign, which every single marketer knows how to do. And that's essentially what we're doing over here. This flowchart over here is the messaging flow that you just saw me interacting with on the chatbot. So if I click onto one of these blocks over here, you can see that we've defined the messages that the chatbot's going to send. We've defined the user input that the user can respond with. So I clicked start a quiz in the first part of this webinar. If we scroll down a little further, you can see that we're doing a little bit more complex stuff over here. So over here in the calculation gambit, what we are doing is we're actually using the Math.js API to calculate what the user's score is based on their responses to these questions. And then based on what their score is, we can branch them off in different directions. So if they got most of the questions right, we branch them off in one direction. If they got most of the questions wrong, we branch them off in another direction. And as you can see over here, we have these plum gambits over here. I'm not going to go into too much detail over here, because what we've had happen in the past is we've actually accidentally exposed our API keys to certain services. But this is what it looks like inside. Essentially, what we achieve over here is we actually make a call to the Plum API. We can use Plum's incentivization platform to pull a voucher or a gift card in, pull the details in, and distribute it to the customer over here at the end. And then finally, at the end over here, what we can also do is for the email and the text notifications that users might request, we can link up with other APIs over here. I haven't set it up, but I have named these two blocks in our conversational flow, SendGrid and Twilio, because those are the APIs our customers most often use. You can essentially use those APIs, hook them up in here to send a text or send an email to your customers with the necessary information about the gift card that they have redeemed. And I'm just taking a quick time check over here. We are actually almost exactly on schedule right now. I was anticipating that we'd have about 15 minutes at the end for question and answer session. We're a little over that. We have about 17 minutes, which is all the better, because I think the best webinars, I was telling Anisha this yesterday, the best webinars are when you guys engage with us at the end. And there's no sense in dragging out a session for longer than it needs to be if we can share the information in a shorter span of time. So with that, that's essentially what the quiz chatbot looks like on the back end. This is what you would be doing if you want to create something like this. Regarding these API integrations, the beauty of having a customer success team that's as good as ours is that even if the setup for these API integrations is actually quite easy. I mean, even I could do them. If that means anything to you guys, just the fact that I could set it up as a marketer shows to you that it's quite easy to make, easy to do, easy to implement. But if you do need help with it, we're always here to help you. We have folks on the team who do this for a living that help our customers set things like this up. So if you have any trouble while you're building your own quiz chatbot, let us know and we will help you out. Now we can move on to the question and answer section of this webinar. But before we do that, for the folks of you in the audience who might have other stuff to do today, might have Zoom fatigue setting in, these are our contact details, both Zozode's and ours. This is contact details. So if you have any questions about any of the stuff that we've spoken about today, let's wait for these contact details. We'll use these contact details to get in touch with us. and we'd be more than happy to answer any questions that you have. If you want to implement something like this in your customer experience stack, if you want to implement something like this in your digital marketing experiences, in your customer service experiences, feel free to reach out to us. My colleague Abhilash is going to drop a link to a demo booking page on the TARS website. If you get in touch with us and book a demo with us, we can help you implement both the Zozode API into your TARS chatbot and build this sort of end-to-end quiz chatbot solution. But yeah, with that, we'll move on to questions and answers. I know that we have one question from Mike. Mike, great to see you on this webinar. If you guys don't know this, we actually interviewed Mike a couple of months back, so you should go check our website out. Great interview with Mike, doing a lot of awesome stuff with our chatbots. Would be great to hear some real examples of how quiz bots are being used. Thanks. Great question, Mike. So the one that I showed you is sort of based on some ways that some of our users make or use these quiz chatbots, but other ways that folks use quiz chatbots, as we were talking about earlier, it's not just useful for customer engagement, it's also used for employee engagement, it's used for partner engagement. So a couple of use cases that I've seen, certification programs. Just recently, someone shared a certification program quiz on the TARS Slack group, which I was checking out. That was really cool. Essentially, a company was releasing a new technology in the way that they package their items, and they wanted to run a certification campaign around it. And the way that they wanted to distribute their certificates was a chatbot would administer a quiz to someone. It would give them a little bit of information about this new technology, quiz them about that information, and then based on their responses, incentivize them with a certificate at the end, proving to them that they, giving them something to take home as an incentive to show that they'd gotten certified in that new technology. Similarly, we've seen customers use these quiz chatbots for employee engagement. So you want to encourage your sales team to do something, you want to do something fun for your employees, create a quiz chatbot, send it to them, give them a gift card at the end based on their responses. Great way to use it as well. If you have customers, I mean, if you're looking at a customer facing use case, if you're looking at a digital marketing use case for one of your customers, I think that, like Anisha mentioned, this is a great way to reinforce your brand loyalty. It's a great way to create repeat customers. So I'd say that the best way to use something like this, in my opinion, if I was implementing something like this for my customers, maybe we will actually, is to create a quiz chatbot and send it out to your existing list. If you want to re-engage them and get them to come back to you for more services, or at least just capture a piece of their mind share and stay in there. Yeah, Abhilash has also shared the link to our interview with Mike. So awesome. Well, thanks for asking that question. We're going to wait for some more questions over here. I am assuming that you guys are frantically typing away to get your questions in on time. But if you don't have any questions, that's also completely fine. I guess Anisha and I just did a fantastic job of explaining our content. But if that's the case, we can end the webinar a little early. We can all get on with our days. I know I have a call to jump on immediately after this webinar, so we should be, and my neighbors have started drilling again, so that's also a good cue for the end of the webinar. But yeah, we'll be here for another 10 minutes or so to answer your guys' questions. Any doubts, any clarifications that you need, let us know, and we'd be more than happy to walk you guys through it. We have a new message here. So the scoring is built into the bot creator. Yeah, so the scoring, let me jump out of, since I know that you are an existing TARS user and are familiar with how the platform works as well, let me go ahead and jump into the builder and show you how the scoring works. So in the TARS builder, we have this feature called the uval feature. I don't know exactly what uval stands for, but I assume it stands for underlying value. So what we have done in this chatbot is for each of the questions that we ask the user, we give them the options as buttons, and then we activate this underlying value feature by clicking the plus button and then clicking this tag icon over here. And then once we do that for each of the options, we can give each of these options an underlying value. So we give the correct answer a value of 1, and we give all the wrong answers a value of 0. And essentially what we can do at the end in the calculation gambit over here, where we're making the calculation, is we can send each of these underlying values from all of the questions to our Math.js API. So Math.js is a basic API that allows you to do mathematical calculations. So essentially, we're telling Math.js, we want to add the underlying value of question 1, question 2, question 3. And then this gives us back the actual sum. So now we know whether they got 2 questions correct. We know whether they got 3 questions correct. We know whether they got 1 question correct. And what we are doing with that information is we are branching the conversation off in different directions using our conditional jump feature. So the way that we've set it up over here, we are checking the result of that API call. We're checking the result of that math equation where we're adding the underlying values of all of those questions. If they had an answer that is either 3 or 2, so they got 2 of the questions correct or 3 of the questions correct, we branch them off in direction 1. In all other situations, so if they got an answer of 1 or 0, we branch them off in the second direction. And then when we branch them off in those 2 different directions, so this is the first direction, we make the Plum call, the Plum API call. If we branch them off in the second direction, we also make the Plum API call because, spoiler alert, in these quizzes, we give them the reward regardless of how well they do on the quiz. Because obviously if they don't do well on the quiz, we don't want to be like, oh, sorry, we don't want your business, go away. No incentive for you. We still want to give them the incentive. We're just making the process of getting that incentive a little bit more fun. And then based on which branch they went off in, we give them custom messaging. So over here, if they did well on that quiz, we can say, hey, to reward you for your achievement, I'm giving you to reward you for your achievement, I'm giving you a gift card. And then if they didn't do well, it's actually over here, we didn't change the copy, but what it should say is, it looks like you need a little bit more. It looks like you need a little bit more travel. You didn't do too well in that quiz. It looks like you need some practical experience. It looks like you need to practice and actually go out there and travel. So here's a gift card that you can use to travel some more, bulk up on your travel knowledge, and then use that to give this quiz again. But that's the not so short answer to your question about how scoring works in these chatbots. Is there conditional logic regardless of the final score? If their answer is with choice A, they get a certain result. Yep. So essentially, using the same conditional jumping feature that I just showed you, you can branch it off based on. You can branch off the conversation based on specific responses. You can branch it off based on. You can give, using the underlying value, you can give different questions different weightages. So let's say we want question 1 to be worth more than question 2. We can give the value of question 1 a correct answer in question 1, 2 instead. So that way, if they only get question 1 correct, that automatically takes them into the first branch because they already have a score above or of 2 or above. But I'm going to shift this back to 1 over here. Let's check this. Great, thanks. I love DARS. Glad to hear it. Glad to hear that you love the DARS builder. This is really what we live for, seeing feedback like this. Awesome. Yeah, I think that we don't really have any more questions right now. So I'm going to extremely slowly close out this webinar, give you guys a last opportunity to drop any questions in the Q&A or the chat section. This actually works out perfectly if we do end right now, because I will have 5 minutes to prepare for my next call. But thank you guys for joining us. And thank you, Anisha, for joining us today as a co-host. It was great having you on. A lot of great information that you shared with us and the audience. I'm 100% certain that it was useful to everyone on this audience, everyone who joined from the TAR side at the very least.
Right, and I'm sure they could like connect the dots, the both halves of the webinar. So
Right.
yeah.
Which worked out great. To reiterate what I said at the beginning of the webinar, we are sending out a recording of this webinar. So if you zoned out, if you want to watch it again, if you want to share it with your friends, if you want to share it with your family for whatever reason, don't worry, we've got you covered. We will send you a recording to this webinar after it's done. And you guys will have that with you. We also put all our webinar recordings up on the TAR's website. So let me actually pull that up. You can actually go way back in time to the second webinar we hosted ourselves, to see what the process was actually like to build this initial quiz chatbot that we were interacting with. So if you scroll all the way back down to the bottom, how to create a quiz chatbot. Where is it? Yep. Okay. This is the second webinar we hosted, how to conduct user engagement quizzes through a chatbot. If you go to this landing page, you'll see the recording of the webinar where we actually created this quiz chatbot without the integration, obviously, because we weren't partnering with Zozode back in the time, at the time. But you can watch this quiz to, you can watch this webinar to learn about how we made this quiz. But yeah, be sure, Abdullah shared the link to that webinar in the chat. But with that, we will close this webinar out. Thank you guys for joining us. It was, as always, a pleasure hosting it for you guys. And again, keep a lookout for our future webinars. We're hosting a lot more. Quick plug for my good friend Levi, who's hosting a webinar tomorrow. We are hosting a webinar tomorrow with the folks over at Cardinality. Last minute plug over here. Let me pull up the landing page for that webinar. It's all the way at the top over here. Yep, how AI and automation can help government agencies scale. So we're partnering with the folks over at Cardinality to talk about this. I know that most of you guys are private sector folks on this webinar, working in digital marketing, working in customer experience. But a good way I like to think about these government-specific webinars is if you can use AI and automation to help a government agency scale, which government agencies are notoriously bad at this, then you can use those learnings to definitely make your business scale as well. So be sure to sign up for this webinar as well. And with that, I'm going to end the webinar. Thank you guys for joining us.